How a carpet is dyed is going to have an effect on how you clean it. As a matter of fact, certain types of dye methods gives you a lot more margin for error, and others get kind of risky depending on what type of chemistry you're using. First off, I'm going to break this down into two different categories. One is going to be an insoluble dye. What does that mean? It doesn't dissolve in anything. And then we have a soluble dye, such as when you used to make tie-dye t-shirts. That would be a soluble dye. So let me first show you. This will be the insoluble dye. This is if I was going to solution dye a carpet, such as an olefin or polypropylene, or any synthetic material can be solution dyed. I would be using pigments. These pigments would be mixed in at the same time that the plastic pigments for the fiber themselves are working. So I'll put some in there. I'll stir this up, and as you can notice, there is no change to the water. Okay. Now let me go to the soluble dye in the second one here. Sprinkle a little bit of this in here. Whoa, big difference. I didn't even really have to stir this, but as you can see, this is a dark blue. That is a soluble dye form. Now, once again, insolubles are used when we're doing solution dyeing, in other words, melting the fiber polymers along with the pigments, and that's what's going to give you a solution dyed material, similar to a carrot and a radish. Okay? Now, let's move past that. If they have not dyed the carpet, when they make it into a yarn, they have some other options. At this point, they may just do a solid dye on the yarns themselves. They may do what's called a knit-de-knit dye on the yarns. Once they put these random colors on here, now what they're going to do is actually unknit those yarns and make them into a patterned carpet that you would use in the commercial market. One other way we may go about this is we may use a printed dye. Printed dyes would be screen printed from the surface. This would be used with a carpet that already has a secondary backing on. But for residential, the #1 form of dyeing is going to be what they call either continuous dyeing or Beck dyeing. In this case, we have what's called gray goods. These are yarns that have been implanted in the primary backing with no secondary. This can either be dyed in a large vat or it can be dyed in a continuous motion where it's only going to be in the dye bath for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Big difference between 2 to 3 minutes and 3 hours that it may be in a Beck dye. So the more durable the dye, the more aggressive we can get during our cleaning process.